If you don't know what to do with AI, maybe you should give White Robot a try. Lazy lingo, give by freebie try.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to give us a like and follow now, you hear?
Welcome back to another episode of the White Robot Podcast. My name's Julian Smith, and today I'm going to be talking about something that is kind of technical, probably boring to a lot of people, but I'm going to try and make this interesting because I'm telling you that data was not something that interested me a little over a year ago. And then I had a eureka moment about data. Particularly stateless data architecture. And I know that probably sounds like a huge loaded term, but that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And Studio J is not entirely built on with I wouldn't call it stateless data architecture necessarily. However, does do something very innovative, which is that it is database free. It operates on a flat JSON system instead. That was that is its biggest gamble. There are a few other gambles, like it can operate with just about any AI model and system, but it is a little, let's say, Claude centric. So that perhaps is a bit of a gamble as well. However, the biggest one I think is the flat JSON system. And make no mistake that before I ever even built this, I had talked about this conceptually years ago with people and was told it was impossible. And it's not. It turns out Studio J is basically proof of that. And I'm kind of excited to talk about this now, in part because I had an exchange with somebody who works at Oracle. I won't name them, but because of the fact that they worked for Oracle, I thought, oh, this guy might have some insights into this gamble of mine. And his response was, I am aware of one other team that's working on something like this in private, and you're not crazy. So I think this is the innovations that exist within Studio J are in fact bigger than a lot of people even realize. But let's take a step back and let's talk about what stateless data architecture is. So again, I stumbled upon this concept. In other words, I was building with Claude years ago. I hate databases. That's basically the real story behind it. And so I have always kind of been, looked for solutions around that. JSON files were always one in small micro instances with little tools. And a little over a year ago, when I was working with Claude, I was insisting on an architecture for this little micro tool. It was a portfolio tool. And Claude came back to me and said, I've never seen data handled this way. And I didn't really think much about it. I thought, well, okay, you're just hallucinating. I can't be alone in this. But then I started to dig deeper, and I named it stateless data architecture or stateless regenerative data architecture. And then discovered that, oh, okay, that term exists, the concept exists, but it's not widely used or talked about. What is it? Is basically this. Most modern systems follow a familiar pattern, which is centralized data storage, and API-driven interactions, and cloud-dependent functionality. And this is powerful. But this architecture does create several dependencies. It creates an infrastructure dependency. In other words, the applications require servers, databases, and a hosting platform. There are connectivity dependencies. So functionally, the whole thing breaks down if one if there's no internet connection on either side. There's vendor lock-in, and you hear me promote Studio J a lot about that. We cut down on your SaaS rent. So because the data typically for most apps and tools remains trapped within the proprietary system of the app creator. And then finally, there's the dependency of maintenance overhead. In other words, if you build something using regular data architecture with a database, you still have a maintenance overhead with that database. So that's one of the things, and part of the gamble with Studio J is that I have not reached a point in my use of it, and it's now been used and deployed across multiple websites, across multiple business models. I have deployed it in multiple instances, and at no point has the data become an issue to the point where it's like, okay, now I need a database. But even if you did, especially with AI today, converting that would not be a big problem. So again, that maintenance overhead, if you scale to the point where you need it, then you need it and you do it. But at this point, I certainly haven't even reached that point. So now, what's the contrast of that? Why is stateless data architecture different? Because it inverts those assumptions. In other words, instead of building applications that consume data, we build generators that produce data embedded applications. So when I discovered this or kind of came upon this as an approach, I used that little portfolio as an example where you could take the output page, my portfolio page that would be presented to the public online with all of its, here's this example, here's this project, here's that project, here's the screen capture of it, here's the image, here's the description of it, etc. All of that can function, you could do that with a database. In other words, I could just add things to the database and then that page could update automatically. That's the old way. In this case, I take the page itself and I put it into the tool, and the tool sort of unpacks the data from the page and then rebuilds the page with the new data you've added. So part of that, what that means is that, again, there's no server dependency. You can actually get that. You can operate that right from your desktop and update it at will. And then when you are connected to the internet, upload it. So as at a sort of very high level, and I said I wasn't going to make this technical and boring, and then there I am. But let's get into how this applies and how I am dealing with that potential inevitability of the need for a database. So um, let me actually go over to, you're looking at a new tool, which is really not that exciting in many ways. It is the what am I sharing? I don't want to share this tab. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong tab. Right. So but this data index page. And you can see that I've now started, because this is an infrastructural change to Studio J, and you're looking at the white robot installation of Studio J. So you can see that I've indexed a few pages, and then these are all the modules that I'm going to have to go back. Now, some of these I won't bother, because it's actually data that no one would ever care about or use. Um, but now that we've created this system, and I'm going to now show you the other side of that, this is the more exciting side, and I really should have almost started here, right? Is that I've created a module called a pasteboard. And so the pasteboard, for all of those modules that you saw were indexed, well, now this picks up on that index. And now I can go into any one of these, and I can pick an asset. I can say, okay, there's that one, and it's available for me to download. And then as far as that's from, let's say, that the episode banners, but I also wanted to do, work with some script. Well, here's a script on this one. Okay, so I'm going to add that to my pasteboard. Wonderful. Okay, and now when I go somewhere else, if I want to use those in some other tool, it could really be a number of tools. But let's say um, uh, RealForge, I wanted to use that script or something in there, and I was building something new. Well, if you see down on the bottom of my page now, normally there's that little robot who's your kind of chat assistant. He's there to help you at any point in time. Well, now here's my clipboard. And now I can copy these items into whatever I'm using. So if I want to copy that script, then I would just copy it and use it in, let's say, some new video. So there's the practical application of it. As in other words, this clipboard is a real kind of, instead of being just a boring database, it's actually using data in the way that people really use it, which is, hold on, I need to collect a bunch of stuff that I want to copy and work with. So now I've got this portable clipboard for the entire system. And in many ways, that functions as a database. So, in a weird way, Studio J now has a database, and that's what I'm really demonstrating for you. And just to get now, we'll go back into the kind of technical, and we'll go over to Claude. And at this point now, this is an FTP process again because this is structural. So all I have to do now is for a module that has not been indexed is just give Claude the API file, and from that, Claude is going to deduce the recipe for that particular module, and it's going to give me a new JSON file. That JSON is called pasteboard.json. And we'll drag that by FTP into the dashboard for this particular module. We're working on the Giphy pack one. And what's it saying there? It's saying surveying the Giphy pack API structure, view default pack, this pack, gets pack, save pack, view add item, update item to get the exact item field shape. So it's deducing. What's interesting about this, in fact, is that I could share with it let's say, the JSON file in the data folder because I have FTP access. I can go and I can grab that data easily, and it could just read it directly from there in terms of what is the outputted JSON. But Claude and I have worked out that, in fact, starting with the API is a good way to go. And I think the real reason for that is that, in, let's say, a script writing process or in a whole bunch of processes, you might just want the end result file. You don't really want, for a clipboard, you don't want to sift through all of the processing data um, that got you there. So it is sort of cleverly deducing what I probably want from that. Oh, and I should have probably just told it, hey, I don't need this as a zip file, because that's one little funny sort of quirk, is that um, because Studio J operates with zip files a lot, it has a zip installer for new modules. And by the way, that's another interesting new update, is that we now have that can now publish to the public folder and to the shared folder, and it has an updater, which means that you can now do updates and circumvent the data. In other words, keep all your data there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag that into my FTP, and we're going to see how that plays out from here. Okay, so we're back, I think, with the right good microphone, and back in the admin panel. So I've just dragged that file, which is, as I said, is called pasteboard.json. And I open up my data index, and let's see that now we do see, yes, Giphy pack is there. So if I go over to the dashboard again, in the regular dashboard, and I open up my pasteboard, can I now add? Yes, it's found a bunch of GIFs. So now if I wanted to add those to my board, they are available to me. And you see that they're there. And if I clear my board and now go away to the dashboard, you see that it's disappeared from the left-hand side there. But basically, that's now a tool that's going to let me grab the data from any other module within Studio J, and there's the full list. And again, for somebody who said, "Hey, this was impossible," or this is going to be too much data. Well, let me go over to, because I went over to Claude just recently to have it kind of compile a list of what are all of our capabilities. And this is just an overview, because this is not all of the installations. This is just an overview of the installations in White Robot. And so we have this list of administrative and platform management tools. We have this list of communication and internal tools. We have a few analytics and tracking and intelligence tools. We have a whole bunch of AI tools and prompt engineering tools. And then a whole bunch of content creation and media production tools. And keep in mind, media production files are big. Those are things that choke up databases normally. So why is this working so well? And why is it working so fast? So I think we're on to something. For sure. It has these marketing and sales and lead management tools. It has these project management and collaboration and asset tools so that you can work with clients and staff. And it has a few strategy and advisory tools built in. Again, slightly leaning towards Claude's API. And mostly using just Sonnet. Talking about Fable is a whole other episode, but I think hopefully that covers what I'm talking about in terms of our flat JSON architecture and a bit of, again, the concept of stateless data architecture, which liberates us from a lot of those constraints of typical data architecture. And as I mentioned at the top of this, I have it from somebody with some decent authority that it's not such a crazy idea after all. And I think you should come and check us out at studioj.app or whiterobot.com. And I'm getting a lot of heat from somebody on my team about the fact that these domains have dashes in them, and it's true. We'll work on all of these things. We will. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this show. I know it was a little more for the technical crowd, but for that technical crowd, I hope you enjoyed it. Take care.
If you don't know what to do with AI, maybe you should give White Robot a try. Maybe linger, get by freebies right.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to give us a like and follow now, you hear?